Hey comic collectors, it's Christopher, aka the Bronze Age Nerd. I'm a comic book collector who loves to play devil's advocate, and one of the ways I do that is looking at books that were hot 3 months ago or 6 months ago and seeing if they're still worth money today, if they still were a good investment. So the way I do this is I make a series of videos called Top 5 Not to Buy, where I pull 5 comic books from all those hot lists and I recommend not buying them for investment. Then I take a look back at those books 3 months and 6 months later, and I let you know how those books did. Before we get to today's video, I want to thank the sponsor, Comic Barricade. Comic barricades are a fantastic solution to a problem I bet you've had before. Have you ever had your comic books lean or fall over inside a comic book box that wasn't completely full? Well, if that's the case, if you want to prevent those bends, creases, and spine ticks, I recommend checking out Comic Barricades. Comic barricades create a wall inside your comic book box, and not only does that add rigidity and support to your stack of comic book boxes, it also prevents your comic books from falling over or flopping over. Stop the lean in your comic book boxes. Now, this design is patented, made here in the United States, and it ships for free. It's also available in 2 different sizes. You can get the regular size for most comic book boxes, or you can get the XL, which is great for those magazine boxes, a graded comic book box, things like that. Best of all, if you want to try out Comic Barricades, you can head over to comicbarricade.com and use the code BRONZE10 at checkout to save 10%. Remember, with Comic Barricades, it's as easy as insert, support, and stabilize. Okay, so let's get into the books. The first book we're going to look at is Justice League Incarnate #1. This is the 1 in 25 Peterson variant. Now, this list of comic books happens to be from December 18th. So we're looking at books that were hot 6 months ago first. And I'm just going to really quickly look at cover price. That's what you guys voted on for sales data. The current FMV for these are $41 in a raw. Basically, you've got sales going anywhere from $30, $55 seems to be a high watermark that I see. But we've kind of settled back down to here in May where we're looking at $41. So a lot of those sales to me look like they're in about the $45 range back in December. Very few sales back in February. And then in May, we have one sale for $41. Another place I like to look is eBay sold listings. And I mean, you could look at a whole bunch of places, but I think this gives us a good cross section of what these books were doing. I can go back to March 27th and see a sale for $12.50. And then there's really not much. And this kind of is the tail of the tape. You have a 1 in 25 key from 6 months ago that sold on June 4th for $85 in a CGC 9.8. Yeah. That probably wasn't a really good investment at the time. Next up on the list, we're going to check out this cool cover. This is Miles Morales Spider-Man issue 33. This is the Manhanini 1 in 25 variant. Right now, you can see the current FMV is 6209 on a raw book. So back in December, in the early part of the month, you were seeing these sell for about 20 to 30, $35, started to climb up to 40, and then it shot up. We have 90, 100, 77, 100, 45, 93, 100, 120, 123, 71, 70, 30, and 80. Really interesting. We have a very quick sales distribution, a quick spike, and then not much. So are these books at CGC? Are they getting graded? We don't have any graded values to look at from cover price. On eBay, we can go back to March 20th and see that we have a $41 sale, 50 best offer accepted. On April 24th, you have a 9.8 selling for $125, 137 best offer on a 9.8, $86 on a 9.8 in May, $112 in late May on a 9.8. And then here in June, this is kind of interesting to me because, you know, we're kind of looking at 6 months later. In June, on June 6th, you had a $91, and that was a bidded book. It wasn't a buy it now or anything like that. And then in the same thing, on June 12th, you had the 9.8 sell for $72. So you're still at about that ratio that to me that just doesn't make sense. Like if I'm investing in a 1 in 25 and I was paying $100 for a book when that list came out, then I really would hope to see like a double or triple of my money, especially for a 9.8. That's kind of the best you can hope for in the modern Marvel market. So that seems like a lose to me. All right, next up, we're going to check out Uncanny X-Men 282. This is the first appearance of Bishop, although it's really just a cameo appearance, but it's first cover appearance. Everyone thinks it's the key for Bishop, whatever, that's totally fine. But this is the second print. This is like the gold on the background of the cover. And this is something that came up. Bryce over at Bryce Comics really kind of hit this book hard around that time frame. I think that's why it ended up on the list. Okay, so before the list was made, we were seeing sales of about $12. As you get later into the month, we could see there's a $65 sale, $60 sale, $76 might be the high mark, some 20s, some 30s. And then in February, we see a raw sale of 22. Looks like it was supposedly a mid-grade. Let's switch over to graded because we do have graded sales data for this. I'm only going to care about a 9.8 for a book like this. If you look at the 9.8 sales, the last sale that they're tracking is a 9.8 during that peak at $400. Okay, so we're going back to March 17th, $18 for a copy, 46 for a 9.4, 41 for a 9.6, 9.6 for 71. Okay, here we have in April 25th, we have a 9.8 for 275. So we did see that 9.8 sale for 400 back in December. That's definitely a big drop, although that's still pretty darn good. That's more than I expected. In May, you have a 9.6 for 53. And just worth pointing out, these raw sales, we're seeing these at about $15 right now. That's not too far from where they were before. I think this was on anybody's radar, really. And here in May, we have a 9.8 selling for $215. And in June, we have a 9.4 selling for $36. At the time that Bry posted that video or the content that was out there, I know it ended up on like a key collector list. If you went out and found some of these for cheap, you're probably doing okay. If you were paying that FMV, that $30 plus FMV for a raw, you're breaking even now. If you found high grade raws and you were getting them submitted and getting 9.8s, you're probably doing pretty good. So on this book, it really depends on what you did. It depends on if you, went out and found high grade raws for a good deal, submitted them to CGC, and now you're sitting on 9.8s. That probably was a win for you. Anything less than that, I think you're pretty even. That's just my interpretation. Let me know what you guys think about the data down below in the comments. Next up, West Coast Avengers 21. This is when Moon Knight joins the West Coast Avengers. There's speculation that that's what would happen. I think a director said something about that being cool in an interview. I think that's kind of what sparked this off. Let's look at raw and graded on this book. Okay, in early December, this book was selling for $7 to $20. I mean, there was a lot of spec around Moon Knight. You can see before that it was selling for mostly less than $10. As you get to the end of December, this book never really did all that great. 30, 35. Did it get anywhere close to that after? I see nothing even close to that after 25 in April, one copy sold. I mean, there's a bunch of other sales that are a lot less. Let's look at graded. Oof, not much to go on, which doesn't surprise me. I can't imagine a lot of people were rushing to grade this book before. So that's in January, we had a 9.6 sell for $53. Okay, going back to March on the eBay sold listings, it's all over the place. None of these are particularly high. 9.6 sold for $150 from Canada. Let's see, do we have any other graded sales to go off here? Anything else that just obviously pops out at us? I don't want to spend too much time on this, but a 9.6 from CBCS sold for $75 in April. Okay, several lots. 12 to 22. Yeah, this one's a tough one, but I mean, I think you can still readily find raw books for, a pretty good deal. And I think Moon Knight's really dropping off. So if we follow up on this one later on, I'll be really surprised to see if this held some value. All right, now this one's a little bit different. This was a big book I went after because it's an established Silver Age book, Fantastic Four Annual #1, which is a cool book for several reasons. This book, however, ended up on list because it retold Namor's origin, which is not something that I think is really going to be especially interesting for this book, in my personal opinion. That's why it ended up on the list of ones I would recommend not buying. Let's look at raw data for this one, which is going to be really subjective, so I'm looking at it very quickly. All right, so in December, you're looking at anywhere between 125, 115, it looks like, to $700. And then in January, anywhere from 51 to 720. February, 300 to 460. We don't know the conditions of these books. And for a modern, that's one thing. For a Silver Age book, I have a harder time being okay with that. I will say it's interesting. In June, we have a few sales around the 200 to 225 mark. Now, looking at eBay, I will say that, I haven't zoomed in and looked at these, but none of these look particularly low grade except for that one. You do see some staining, all that kind of normal stuff. Here's a 6.5 that sold for $1,475. It occurs to me that we didn't look at the graded sales. Let's see, what was the most common grade? Is a 9.0, which is kind of surprising. So for a 9.0, do we have anything around that? Okay, in April 2021, which is last year before this ended up on the list. It's about 8 months before this ended up on the list. A 9.0 sold for $2,400. Interesting that, we're seeing a few sales here that are, 6.5 for $1,475, a 4.5 for $600. That's a best offer accepted, a 3.0 for $475. This is a great book. I think this is a fantastic book. If you find a good deal on it and you're looking for one, I don't know why you wouldn't buy it. I just don't see this being insanely special because of the reason that it was on the list back in December. These are the kind of books where it's really hard for me to say like this was a bad buy, because this is a great book in general. I mean, it's the first Fantastic Four annual. That's something that's pretty cool to a lot of collectors, right? And I can't really tell why people bought this. Did they buy this because of Namor, or did they buy this because it's a Fantastic Four annual, or did they buy it because they're a Fantastic Four fan? It's really hard to determine the motives of buyers of, somewhat bigger keys, right? So it's hard for me to determine on this one. I'm curious what you guys think down below. Was this a buy or was this a sell? What do you think? Okay, so now we're going to hop forward to the 3 months later. This was Batman The Long Halloween, the IMAX special. It was something that came out with the Batman during the release of that. We don't have any graded sales. When we look at raw books, though, yikes, a lot of them sold in March and nothing since then. Boy, it's all over. There's a ton of data here. Trying to look for kind of a trend here. It's 41, but there's also 6, 46, 35, 13. They're kind of all over the place with no graded sales to boot. So let's do that thing where we look at eBay. $15, $8, $20. Boy, I'm noticing a lot lower sales here on average on eBay as I'm scrolling through all these sold listings. 20, but also 2. Damn. 15, 6, 7, 77, $8. Yeah, this also came in Walmart packs, which definitely skews things. 12, 10. Here's a pack of 6 of them for 82. So that's like 10, $12 a piece. A 9.6 actually sold for 32. 10, 650, 425, Walmart packs, 5. Boy, I don't know. Yeah, I guess it's a couple times cover for what, I'd expect this to be like a $4 or $5 book, even though it's a promo comic. I just don't see this being a long-term hold. So you let me know what you think. I'm happy to have not bought this one. Now, I'm a huge fan of Sozo Mika's Catwoman 39. I think a lot of us were, but she's had a ton of ratio variants on the Catwoman book since then. I'm not as big a fan of most of them. There is, a couple of recent ones that definitely caught fire too, but I hit a couple of her 1 in 25s for some of these Catwoman issues, and Catwoman 40 was one of them. So in March, this was selling anywhere between $22, which is less than ratio. You generally expect to spend about $25 for a 1 in 25, all the way up to 44, 48, 51, 58. And then in May, 50 to 23, and then in June 24. For graded, we have one graded sale. It's a 9.8 here in June for $90. That is not a huge win in my book. Looking at eBay sold, we're 35, 50, 35, 50, 46. And then as time goes on, I bet you we'll see this go down. So far, we're seeing kind of the trend go down. This 1 in 25 CBCS blue label sold for less than 85. 25, that one sold for 85. That's pretty good. Oh, here we go. Yeah, there's that $90 CBCS. So I don't know. What were you getting out of this book? I don't think it's something that's going to catch fire long term. If it is, you could buy it now and save money from what you would have paid then, or at least be out the same amount of money. So yeah, I'm happy calling that one a one you shouldn't have bought. Deathstroke Inc. number 6. This is the Garner cover, kind of just a hot cover. That's really all it came down to. Another 1 in 25. That was the week of ratios. And I think there is a lesson in here about ratios. People that won on these books are generally people that got in on FOC and ordered those books for less than cover price or less than ratio price. Made some kind of deal and then they got lucky. But if you do that to 10 or 20 different ratios and they don't hit, you've lost money. Okay, so this one 30 to 120 in February. That looks like the high mark. In March, 30 to 50. I see one sale for 75 and one for 85. One for 34 in April, and then 40, 50, 40. Any graded? No graded. Let's look at eBay. Okay, so eBay, we go down to 36 on March 17th, and let's just kind of, not a whole lot of sales data really. 34, 40, 50, 40. This is performing slightly better from what I can see here on the raw side. It's performing slightly better than what you would expect a standard ratio to do. But, I guess this was probably a decent buy unless you were the one that paid $100 to $120 for it, that's why I put it on the list, is I was seeing sale prices that were creeping up towards that amount. You're a loser in the financial scheme of things if you bought this book at that price. If you got in on the ground floor on this book, you probably did pretty well on it. But even then, I would hope that we'd be seeing some 9.8s, selling for 150 or something like that, if that was the case. And I don't see any sales data yet. Maybe they just haven't come back yet. All right, so this is a big one, and this is a comic cover that I absolutely love, but I just was not going to pay the price for it. This is Invincible #2, the Tyler Kirkham Adam Eve Whatnot exclusive. And for this particular one, since I did choose the trade dress cover as the one I use, we're going to stick with that one on this one. Interesting. A lot of the sales were obviously probably on Whatnot, but here we have 515, 310, 350, 295, 216, 300. That's all in March. In April, 255, 237, 241. Now, the hardest part on this is seeing what the going rates are on Whatnot, which I don't think that data is really available other than just watching auctions. But the fact that two of them sold together with the Omni-Man and the Adam Eve for 325 is pretty interesting. 250 for one in May, 170 in May for just one of them. There's a 98 for 370 in May, 265, 182, 220, 257. So there's another graded one for 405. Custom label 322 and a 98. That's the version too. Wow, that's a good deal. 308 for the trade dress. Man, this one, it's not really dying off, but there's also a lot of these sales that are going for less than the FMV. So 224, if you were patient, I think you're getting good deals on this if you're looking to buy it now. If you're looking to sell it now, it seems really 50-50. Some people are getting good deals as sellers, and some people are getting bad deals as sellers. Now, again, we don't have the Whatnot piece in place here. This is when I'm really curious at the 6-month mark. I think when I put it on the list, I may have even said that. That's kind of more what I'm curious about with this book. As somebody who's looking to buy this book, it's still not at the point where I want to buy it yet, but I mean, there's a couple sales here. You're getting close. You're kind of sniffing 200, and that's pretty appealing to me. You know, when the book was selling for, I feel like it was selling for like 300 to 400 pretty regularly. And then on Whatnot, I know personally when I was seeing it sell in auctions, I was seeing it sell for like 600-700 pretty regularly right when it first came out. So, all right. So the last book here we're going to talk about is Secret Avengers #1. This is more Moon Knight joining the Avengers kind of talk. Okay. No graded data on cover price. Let's look at the raw. Looks like in March, we got up to 13 or 15 bucks a couple times. A lot of cover price sales though. In April, we got up to $20.15. So it did a little bit better in April. And then in May, we got a couple 10 and $111 sale. In June, we're back down to like below cover price, I think. Okay, a lot of other stuff got pulled in with this one. A fine copy from my comic shop, $2.30, and a nice copy presumably for $25, $2.50 in March, late March. Boy, I think this book like pretty much never popped. $10. Okay, on the most recent sold page here, $10 in June, $11 for 2 books, including it, $10 best offer accepted, $10. So yeah, it looks like maybe this kind of went from cover price to about double cover price, double, maybe triple. Interesting. I don't know if this book's really going to gain steam. This is another one I'm curious to track at the 6-month mark. I don't know. I guess this was a decent buy because you probably didn't pay 10 bucks for it back in March. There's a lot of those sales that were cover price. I'm sure people were pulling this out of bins around that time too. So maybe it was a good buy. I think we're gonna have to wait and see though, like what this does at the 6-month mark, but that's pretty interesting. All right, let me know what you guys think about these books. We've took a look at the 6-month later for some of these books. We took a look at the 3-month later for some of these books. How do you think these books performed? Would you have bought them at the inflated FMV? You know, the time that these came out on these kind of hot lists. What do you think about that? All right, if you made it this far in the video, guess what? I'm not going to ask you to like and subscribe, but I will ask you if you could go follow me on Instagram. I'm trying to get to 1,000 followers on Instagram. I'm so close. I'd really appreciate that. Another thing, if you can go follow me on Whatnot, I do Whatnot auctions weekly. And if you want to save some money on some excellent comic book services like comic books, comic book cleaning and pressing, or comic book supplies, there are offer codes down below for things like Comic Barricade, Turlock Comics, cleaning and pressing, Dangerous Waters Comics, and more to buy your comic books, Gemini comic supplies. All those kinds of things are down below in the comments where you have some discount codes. Go check those out. Lastly, I really want to thank all my channel members. Their names are going to appear on the screen right now. These are people that support me every month here on YouTube. That money goes to help pay for things like my cover price subscription so I can do these. Plus, if you're a channel member, you get entered for a chance to win free comic books from me every month. And I give those awards out. If you're a $10 a month comic member, you get a free bonus comic book as well. So that's definitely something you might want to check out if you're interested in supporting me, and I do appreciate that support. Thank you so much for watching, everybody, and I'll catch you in the next one. Until then, I want to remind you, as always, hey, 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 hey. Read comics every day.